but the old me in the military would shout for them to do the thing. And that completely did not have them understand why they needed to do the thing and when to do it next time without my shouting at them. And so that is a well-intentioned bad idea as an instructor practice, as an instructor feedback technique or presentation technique, in my opinion.
As extended students of Bruce Lee, as we all are to a point, emotional content. So when we use emotional content as pressure, stress, and also emotional driven stress, whether it's motivation by fear, anxiety, or default aggression, where we transfer fear and anxiety to default aggression, it's interesting, as you stated, like your body reacts differently with challenge and what's the other word you were saying? Challenging and threat. So what I find in even the terminology and the language used when it comes to self-defense, I prefer to differentiate self-defense and personal protection. Is why I found with people who come and have trained with me in a self-defense situation or scenario, it's after the fact. It's after a violent incident. So we're having to process through, one, the trauma attached to it, and it's already inefficient because they haven't gone through that trauma-informed training to get their mind out of crisis before they can actually adapt and adopt and move forward. Versus somebody who's going from a personal protection standpoint, they're coming at it preemptively, they're coming at it proactively, and that's interesting as it ties into, again, emotional and content driven stress, like it is in the military, like it is in law enforcement, where you got the barking and the yelling and you got to do this or your guys are going to die type of mentality. But that seems intended to be proactive, but it makes the student react, as it is like the case of self-defense, makes the students coming in from as reaction to contact versus coming at it proactively. And as I've dived more into like trauma-informed training, this is something I'm seeing consistently is, what is the standpoint of the student coming in? Are they coming in for self-defense as a reaction to a situation of violent content, or are they trying to prepare for things such as they're preparing as a profession of arms, they're a professional fighter, or they're just trying to be proactive in their personal protection in life. And it's interesting what the stressors are, if it's fear or if it's motivation. I don't know if that's something you've come to deal with.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've just come back to why. Right, the student's motivation and the why. And no one ever walks into your dojo as tabula rasa, right, as a complete blank slate. And so that brings me back to what I said. How do I add 5 pounds on this person's bar today? 5 more pounds on their barbell. I don't want to add 500 pounds because they'll break them. I want to add 5. And now, how do I do that in a group of 30 or 60 people at Water and Steel? How do I give each person 5 pounds on their barbell that day, but it's a slightly different 5 pounds for everyone? Well, that's what I do, right? And that comes with how we go about presenting the information and designing the practice. And so I see that exactly that way. So I've now gone now, it doesn't mean I don't shout at people on occasion, but the old me in the military would shout for them to do the thing. And that completely did not have them understand why they needed to do the thing and when to do it next time without my shouting at them. And so that is a well-intentioned bad idea as an instructor practice, as an instructor feedback technique or presentation technique, in my opinion. There is research on threat versus challenge. There is research on these other concepts, but that's my opinion. So if I'm trying to get that person to understand why they're doing what they're doing, when is the right time to do that, by shouting at them, especially, or just well-intentionally coaching them, telling them, you're eliminating their understanding for themselves in that moment. And so that happens 100 times with firearms instructors. I did it all the time. I see a right-handed shooter shooting rounds and they're going to the left, and I walk over and and I go, I need you to do some more stuff on the left side of the gun here with your support side. Oh, look, and it fixed it. And I go, carpal tunnel from high-fiving, and I walk away and they pass the qual. Well, that's a well-intentioned bad idea. I now see that. I just didn't know that because I'm eliminating feedback in them for understanding what's going on and how to fix it for themselves. So by walking over and asking them a few questions, hey, so talk to me, what's going on? And if they don't even know that their rounds are going left, well, maybe we need to be talking about that. And if they do know, yeah, they're going left. Okay, well, what do you think that could be? Like, what's going on that does that? Are you moving the trigger? Are you moving the gun? While moving the trigger? Are you, let's just have a conversation. All right, if that's, now try this, try this, try this, try this. They do. How did that go? Try this, try that. Now they do. How did that go? Okay, so now knowing what you know, now when I do this, it works better. Great. Keep doing that. And it was a path of self-discovery for that. So I'm setting them up for just understanding as they're doing it, not just afterward, what they're, and noticing how they can, I'll call it pivot and adjust, or they notice how to optimize for themselves. So yeah, no one ever walks in as a blank slate. And so, my wife and the functional medicine doctor, right? She doesn't typically get people, most of her, this is just me though, like let's say out of 10 of her patients who had cancer, she gets probably 8 of them, if not 9, if not 10, on their second time having cancer. Why not the first time? Because it didn't work the first time. Oh, so now they're looking for something different. Well, at least they're looking to do something different. Definition of insanity, doing the same thing, hoping for a different result. But yeah, so, were you just in a self-defense situation? Are you training now for your next fight? Or are you training for the one that you'd been in last? And that goes towards how now I'm practicing as well, right? And these are these biases or these things that are already framing our practice. So if we can identify that, what's the biggest win for that person? For me at Water and Steel, it's often showing you, yes, maybe a new thing, because that's always cool, but more importantly, showing you how you can now use and train and do just with a few just changes in your mind, how you can re-examine everything you've always done and get even further than you have already, right? Because the level of thinking and training that got you here may not be the level, and probably isn't, the level of thinking and training to get you further. And so, but of course, I especially have, when you are literally given a small time period, 10-hour day, train this officer on something in block training. It's horrible. It's a horrible training way, right? Military, right? Or academy, you've got this much time to get that in their head. Okay, like that kind of idea. So there's, especially when it comes to those things. So what, quote, trauma, or what, we all have big T and little t traumas, right? These things that have happened. But so how do we think about how we're thinking? And so with that in mind, do I know as I put pressure on people, and that would be the same drill, but now I add in contextual. These are just the fancy words for how I would go about designing practice in FMA and in law enforcement or whatever else. So now I would maybe make it a little darker, add more people there, add a little bit of urgency. Things are evolving, happening faster. So I'm manipulating time. I'm manipulating, a site, for example. I'm manipulating some of the other things that can happen in real life, though. I'm not just going to stand there shouting at them, because if I was standing there shouting at you in real life, you would probably just crush me, right? Like, just tell me to shut up, which you should do, because it's not. So it's not teaching you something that's actually going to happen and how to handle it. I would also teach you what we talked about at Water and Steel, have a focus of attention, typically external, and certain breathing techniques. And those two things have to be wired into everything, because that is how you, the person, handles stress, which is your interpretation, threat challenge, of what is happening to you. Right? Do I have the tools and the talent to deal with this situation? Yes? Great. You go to a high state of quote unquote readiness, or, how you can think about that, or you go to anxiety, which means there's actually physiological changes in your heart, like I talked about, blood volume, very cool stuff, but the only difference is between your ears. And so that's why we talked a lot, or I certainly do, about that idea of mindset, visualization, imagery. These are huge, huge wins that will help my people, my students, myself, after the quote unquote training in the dojo as well, making decisions on what to eat, when to sleep, and all that, which is going to get me more, better, faster, stronger the next time I'm putting in the time.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's talk about simple block of instruction time. Yeah, we called it sergeant's time. That was some of the worst training I've ever had and also given. So yeah, I can definitely appreciate that. But it's interesting that I found it, just looking back on it, so many years disconnected from it. But what I found is, when I was teaching something technical, technology based, like load this radio and make contact from this truck to that truck, it was very much pass fail, because there's only one way to do it. You connect these wires here and put the code there, load your frequency, it works, it doesn't work. It's very procedural, product based. And the training and education of that was, I had a different approach to it. Then when we start talking about tactics, like this is where the barking came into play, where you have to do this because the stress and the fear and the anxiety of you must do this because life is on the line. And looking back on this now, it's interesting where my head was at when I was training and teaching these things. And I wonder if anybody else as instructors, especially in the military and law enforcement, have observed that. So it's more of a postulation for the audience to think about your training modalities, because a primary theme of this particular episode is about pedagogy.